I am 97 years old, and I destroyed my own life. Not with drugs, not with crime, not with poverty, with one invisible thing, something you carry every day, something you protect, something you think makes you strong. It almost took my son away from me forever. It made my wife stop talking. It filled my house with silence. And the worst part? I didn't even know it was happening. At 25, I thought I was confident. At 40, I thought I was powerful. At 60, I thought everyone else was the problem. At 72, I sat alone in my kitchen and realized I was the problem. If you are in your 20s or 30s, there is something inside you right now that will quietly destroy your relationships, your peace, your future, and you are feeding it every single day. Stay with me, because if you don't recognize it early, you will wake up one day, like I did, with success in your hands and no one left to share it with. When I was young, I thought being right was everything. Not successful, not kind, not peaceful. Right. I measured my worth by how often I won arguments. If someone challenged me, I sharpened my voice. If someone corrected me, I raised it. I did not sit with ideas. I attacked them. Because somewhere deep inside, I was afraid of being small. And ego hates feeling small. It would rather burn a room down than admit it might be wrong. I remember dinners at the table. My wife would gently suggest something, a different opinion, a softer way, and I would cut her off, not loudly, just firmly, enough to remind everyone who the authority was. I thought leadership meant control. I thought strength meant dominance. I did not realize something very dangerous. People can obey you and still emotionally leave you. That is what happened in my house. Slowly, quietly. My wife stopped sharing opinions. My son stopped sharing dreams. The house was peaceful, but it was not warm. There is a difference. You can create silence with fear, but you cannot create love with it. At 25, I mistook intensity for passion. At 35, I mistook stubbornness for confidence. At 45, I mistook control for respect. And by the time I understood the difference, the damage had already begun. Let me tell you about something ego does very well. It justifies everything. It makes you the hero in every story. When my son pulled away from me, I told myself he was ungrateful. When my wife became distant, I told myself she was too sensitive. When employees quit, I told myself they couldn't handle pressure. Notice the pattern? In every version, I was right. They were wrong. That is the most dangerous prison, a prison where you are always innocent. Because if you are always innocent, you never change. And if you never change, you never grow. The night my son left for good, we didn't shout. That's the part that hurts. There was no dramatic explosion, just cold words, measured distance. He packed quietly. I stood in the doorway, still believing I was teaching him a lesson. But I was not teaching him strength. I was teaching him distance. Years later, when I sat alone at 72, I replayed those moments over and over, and I saw something I had never seen before. He wasn't challenging me. He was asking to be seen. He wasn't rebelling. He was asking to be heard. And I chose ego over empathy. That choice cost me years, years I cannot buy back. Let me tell you another truth. Ego makes you chase things you don't even want. In my 40s, I bought a bigger house, not because I needed space, but because someone else had one. I worked longer hours, not because I loved my job, but because I loved being admired. Every promotion felt good, for a week. Every compliment felt powerful, for a moment. Then the hunger returned. Ego is never satisfied. It always wants more applause, more recognition, more proof. But peace? Peace is quiet. Peace does not need witnesses. I had money. I had status. But I did not have ease. I did not sleep deeply. I was always calculating, always comparing, always proving. When you live like that, you are not free. You are performing, and performance is exhausting. There is something else ego steals from you: curiosity. When you believe you already know, you stop learning. I stopped asking questions. I stopped listening fully, because I believed experience made me superior. But experience without humility becomes arrogance. I met a young man once, decades ago. Brilliant mind, soft-spoken. I dismissed his ideas in a meeting. Later, those same ideas made another company millions. I told myself it was luck, but it wasn't. It was my blindness. Ego blinds you to wisdom that doesn't come from you. It makes you allergic to correction, and correction is the path to growth. You want to know when real change began? Not when I made money, not when I retired. It began the day I felt truly alone, not physically, emotionally. The house was large, but it echoed. No laughter in the kitchen, no long conversations, just television noise and my own thoughts. That is when ego becomes loudest. It tries to protect you. It says, they failed you. But if you are honest, really honest, you begin to see your part. That honesty hurts, but it heals. I called my son after years of distance. My voice was not strong. I did not defend myself. I did not explain. I simply said, I was wrong. Those 3 words weighed more than any speech I ever gave. There was silence on the phone, then a breath, then forgiveness. Do you know what that felt like? Freedom. Not dominance, not victory. Freedom. Because humility releases you from the exhausting job of being perfect. Let me tell you something difficult again. You are not as important as you think. And that is beautiful. The world does not revolve around your image. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to judge you the way you imagine. So why exhaust yourself proving something? Why ruin relationships over perception? Why harden your heart over pride? Time is ruthless. It strips titles, it weakens bodies, it humbles the loud, but it rewards the gentle, the people who listened, the people who apologized early, the people who chose connection over control. At 97, nobody asks about my business awards. Nobody asks how many deals I closed. They ask about stories, about family, about memories. And I realize something painful. The moments I sacrificed for ego are the ones I miss the most. If I could sit with my 25-year-old self, I would not lecture him. I would simply ask him one question. Who are you trying to impress? Because most of my mistakes came from that question unanswered, not from evil, not from cruelty, from insecurity disguised as strength. You do not need to dominate to matter. You do not need to win to be worthy. You do not need to be superior to be respected. Respect earned through fear fades. Respect earned through character lasts. At 97, my legs are weak. My memory fades sometimes. But I feel lighter, because I am no longer fighting the world. I am not trying to prove anything. I am not trying to win. And that is peace, real peace. So ask yourself tonight, if you continue the way you are, if pride keeps leading, where will you be at 70, at 80, at 97? Will your house be loud with love or quiet with regret? You still have time. That is your gift. Lower your voice, soften your pride, listen before defending, pause before reacting. Choose humility while you are still strong enough to choose it, because one day life will choose it for you. I am 97, and I promise you this. Ego feels powerful in youth, but humility feels powerful in old age, and only one of those lasts. Do not wait as long as I did.